I was ferrying a twin otter from San Francisco to Hawaii on the way home to New Zealand, and we had to get it tanked. And what that means is we got big fuel tanks put inside the aeroplane, all the seats taken out. It only had a range of 3 or 4 hours, and it would take 16 hours to get to Honolulu, so we had to put all this extra fuel in. And basically the wrong size feeder hose got used, and we didn't find this out until we were past the point of no return. So we were left with fuel on board the aircraft that we couldn't actually access. We were going to hit the water, we were going to have to ditch. One of the pivotal moments of the whole twin otter crash for me was making the decision to get in the front with Alistair, because we already briefed ourselves that if we had to ditch, Alistair was the captain, he would go into the front and he would fly the airplane himself. You can fly it single pilot, and the other two of us, Mark and myself, would go down the back, and that's how we would ditch. There's a chance I could survive down the back, and there's no chance I could survive in the front, and there's no way I could ever live with myself by sitting down the back and watching him ditch that aeroplane. I went and got in the front, and I said, I've got to do one thing. And he goes, what's that? And I said, I've got to write a note to my girlfriend. And so I got a piece of paper and I wrote this note. And I put it down my underpants, and the whole idea was if they found my body, they would find this last note and they'd give it to her. And he said, oh, that's a great idea, you fly, because we had no autopilot. So I'm flying, and he gets a piece of paper and he looks up in the air and he looks at me and goes, what did you write? And it was just quite funny, so he cracked up a little bit. And then he wrote his note and did the same, and then we looked at each other and we actually put out our hands and we shook hands, and he said, mate, good luck, eh? And he goes, yeah, good luck. And we just started flying, doing everything we could. We were talking to the C-130, the Hercules, and they were trying to find us. And they said, we've got 2 F-15s coming out. They're going to find you on their look-down, shoot-down radar. They'll be able to get you from hundreds of miles away. And next thing we saw some lights screaming past us. He flew underneath us and then flew up in front of us, and he put his afterburners on, and we flew straight through his wake. And we almost lost control of the airplane, which would be quite comic, to tell the truth, that if we'd lost control and spun into the water there. Then the Hercules turned up, and they turned up right alongside of us, and they could fly quite slow, and they said to us, you've got to retract your undercarriage. If you don't retract your undercarriage, you've got minimum chances of survival. And our undercarriage is fixed. And I said, it doesn't retract. Just after the statement, there was just silence on the radio. And he goes, ah, okay. Are you preparing to ditch? Yes, we're going to be ditching very soon. Just before the point of impact, we got so close to the water I could smell it. And I had my head out the window and I was waving Alistair down, waving the captain down. And I shouted really loud, just close the thrust levers, we've got to do it. As he pulled the thrust levers back, I remember just the engines winding down, and that's when we hit the water. As we hit, my seat snapped. I got crushed into the front of the control panel. I could feel the control column breaking some of my ribs, and we were trapped in the cockpit. But the worst thing was my head was locked back and my jaw was locked open, and I was swallowing and swallowing water. There came to a point where a calm thought came across my head that if I took a breath of water, it would all be over. And then as I inhaled to actually inhale this water, the aeroplane bobbed out of the water, and there was about 2 inches left in the cockpit. And I put my lips to the ceiling and took a huge big deep breath of air, and then I looked straight over at Alistair to see if he was still alive, and he's looking straight back at me, and we screamed at each other, get out. The Coast Guard colonel that rescued us said to me that he knows of 300 aircraft in history that have gone down off the coast of Honolulu, and over 1,000 people have been killed, and we were the only ones that have ever survived.